called, chosen and sent. Abraham and Yeshua set the example for us by saying, "Here I am, send me." Preparing the way for events that are still unfolding before our eyes. Abraham claimed his inheritance by going to Canaan and buying a field and a cave in Hebron to bury Sarah, a tomb that still exists today as a symbol of his obedience and commitment to Yahweh's promises. Generation after generation have continued to hold on to that promise. Voices in the wilderness, rejected, misunderstood, ignored, persecuted. So as Yahweh's shamash, or servants, we continue to carry that torch. Our task? To prepare the way. And just like Yochanan, to raise our voices like a shofar, warning the unredeemed rebels to repent and receive the truth. To say to them as watchmen on the walls, Yahweh is doing something new. It's springing up. Can't you see it? He's making roadways in the desert and rivers in the wasteland. Turn from your sins to Yahweh, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Why is it near? Because we take it with us. We're ambassadors. Exactly. Because he's the only one that can make it happen. It's not just theory. Yochanan's wilderness was physical. He was actually physically in a wilderness. And just to correct that, it wasn't a desert, it was a wilderness. And when they came through, the children from Egypt, they came through wilderness, not desert. It's very different. The difference between the two is that one's full of vegetation all the time. And it does have oasis and stuff like that. Desert is just barren. There's no life in it. But the wilderness has life in it. Exactly. And the big question of all, where did they get the porpoise skins to put on the tabernacle? Porpoise skins. Dolphin skins. They used dolphin skins to cover the top of the tabernacle. So I suggest they must have been near the coast for a while.
Well, actually, historically, there were trade routes all through.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. You see, going through the wilderness, you see this sort of little crowd of what looked like ants, and like Wayne was saying, there were camel trains coming through all the time. But there were times when they were down by the ocean, and they would have had access to a lot of these things, and they would have had access to trees and bushes and all sorts of different things.
They would probably die from the trees.
Yeah.
Well, they had access to gold too, because they were told some of those poles were gold, a lot of it.
Exactly, but a lot of that they brought from Egypt with them. The stuff was given to them when they left Egypt. So anything they didn't have like that was given to them from Egypt. That's why the people had to come and give some of the stuff they were given when they left Egypt for the tabernacle. But he was only interested in one thing: those that gave it from a willing heart. If they were giving it grudgingly, or if they were doing it to impress, he didn't want it. Keep it. He wants it freely or not at all. To say to them as watchmen on the walls, Yahweh's doing something new. That's our job. We're watchmen on the walls. And our job is to turn around to people and say, something new's happening, can't you see it? He's making the road in the desert, the rivers in the wasteland. Turn from your sins to Yahweh, for the kingdom of heaven is near. We, just like Yochanan, are prophets. What is a prophet? A prophet is a telegram boy. It's a messenger. It's somebody that hears it and delivers it word for word. Our job is simply to deliver what we hear word for word, just like Yeshua did and said, I don't say anything that I haven't first heard from my Father.
So, why is it that you get many people, especially in Pentecostal churches, who are going to say, the Lord is coming again very, very soon, and God is this, that and the other, things that aren't necessarily written in Torah. Because when I prophesy, I'm prophesying from what's already there. I'm not making anything up. But that's puzzled me because you do get people who will say all sorts of things. Like one guy said that Lake Taupo was going to roll up and scare the daylight out of hundreds of hours. So is that prophecy? Is it prophecy?
It's probably a good job he didn't come back to New Zealand, because what do you do to prophets when it doesn't happen?
He went on.
You stone them. The proof of a prophet is when it happens.
Yes, but is it prophesying something in the future, like the Lord's return?
Yeah, but he wasn't saying it. I remember exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he prophesies lots of different things. He's actually called Gerald Quotes. His name is Gerald Coates, but his nickname is Gerald Quotes.
But the point is, you're getting many people who are prophesying things that, in their own way, are insignificant as like Taupo blowing up, but they are making predictions which could be a prophecy, but might not be. Can you explain that?
Yeah. I find, unless I've heard it from Abra, I better keep my mouth shut. What's the point? You're just going to confuse people. You're going to cause people not to trust because they put their faith in the miracle and not the miracle giver. They put their faith in the prophecy instead of the person that it came from. And they put their faith in the person delivering it rather than the person it came from.
My point is that it's very hard to discern what it is.
Yes. And this is why it says in there, prophets judge prophets. Other prophets have the authority to come along, not judging a person, but their word.
Yes.
And this, as a prophet, this is a responsibility, is to turn around and say, no, that is not from Yahweh. And that takes courage sometimes, particularly when these guys arrive on their Learjets. But we have to do this. We have to turn around and say, this is not the truth. I know you're enthusiastic. I know you're everything else. It's like the school of the prophets and all these different things. I'm not having a go at them, but I'm just saying they need to be careful. They need to tread carefully. That's why it said these people, and it talks in here all about prophets leading them astray. And he basically turned around and says, don't take any notice of them. It didn't come from me. This is why we need discernment, and the person that has discernment about prophecy is a prophet. And it's not about putting people down or judging people. It's about coming alongside them and saying, I've heard from Yahweh, and he's saying he's not really pleased with you because of what you said, because it's not from him. I once heard a prophecy when we were over in Europe, and this guy did a "Thus saith the Lord," which basically means you can't challenge it. Yeah. And at the end of it all, he didn't know how to finish it. And I knew about 5 minutes in, the rest of it was all him. You know, you sort of think, that's the Lord, and then that's him. And he didn't know how to finish it, so in the end he turned and said, Merry Christmas to you all. But a lot of them are just, they're learning. And you want to come alongside them and encourage them and say, look, at this point, that's where you stopped. And this is where you were sort of saying what you were feeling. And it's coaching them and encouraging them and bringing them to that place of letting them know how to take the prophecy and how to bring it out accurately.
It would take a great deal of courage to challenge a pastor.
Yes, exactly. That's why they say, "Thus saith the Lord." It's like, I got the song from God. What it's basically saying is, don't you dare say it wasn't.
You're right.
And you listen to it, you think, I know why you got rid of it.
You know, when Susan was expecting her baby and she wanted to be there, her son, her husband, is a very nice young man. But they didn't listen to what they wanted to do. The midwife said the baby didn't be born on that day. God told me that he was born on another day. And I was jolly nervous, but anyway, I did it. And the baby was born on the day I did. And you know, it makes things a little bit easier for me.
So as I say, they're like children in the marketplace. And they say, but we played a tune for the world to hear, and you didn't dance. And condemning us personally because we won't compromise and join in. And that's what it comes down to, is that when they say these things and they do these things, don't join in. Don't be complacent about it. They are confusing, they're leading people astray. Only the truth sets people free. So if it's not the truth, guess what it does? The opposite. Leads people astray, confuses people. I get very concerned when I see people hand me a card that says so-and-so, prophet.
Yeah. Because we're responsible ourselves if we're the receiver, probably to go
I don't need a card with a name on it saying prophet. I need to see the fruit. And if somebody says that Lake Taupo is going to disappear in a flash, turn around and say, when? Okay, let's be there together, and if you're wrong, I'll stone you, okay? And suddenly they go, I wasn't really serious.
We do find a couple of rocks here.
You want to get biblical? Let's get biblical. Let's have a rock concert.
Yeah, they would say nobody knows the date, the time.
Exactly. That's why, this is why I have a problem with these people that try and set dates.
Correct.
So because we won't dance to their tune, the religious will continue to ridicule and reject us. They'll ignore our warnings because we won't follow their man-made rules. We won't carry their man-made burdens or bow down to their man-made overseers. Again, like Yochanan, our message to them when they come is clear. If you've really turned from your sins, produce the fruit that will prove it. That's why I always say the same thing. Don't talk to me, show me the fruit. I'll recognise the fruit when I see it. I'll recognise the flavour when I taste it. I'll recognise the texture of it. I'll even recognise the flower before the fruit comes. Show me the fruit. I can be a fruit inspector, I'm just not allowed to judge them. And I'm a fruit inspector, and I've done it before, funnily enough, for turners and growers. You don't do it to condemn the growers. You do it to find the flaws in the fruit and the quality of the fruit and the sugar content and all of these things. And you simply put out a report and say, this is it. This is where this fruit's at.
And sometimes you still have to thin the fruit out as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Christine made a good point of that the other day with your apple tree. And she was told that, because there was a lot of fruit on it, she was told take all the little wee ones off while they're babies, so the big ones could really produce well. But how does one know if you take some of them off, it might be the wrong ones?
Discernment, experience. The experts will know. The expert will look at it and they'll know exactly which ones to pick. And this is what Yahweh's like. He'll show us.
Because wouldn't that apply to our lives? There might be lots of little seeds of fruit, but we don't know.
This is why it's not our job to prune, it's his job. He's the one that knows what to prune and how to do it. If I did it, I'd probably chop it down to the ground. I'd be too savage with it. Yeah.
The fruit is talking to the other fruit in the orchard. And so you could only have one kiwi fruit. And I had to look, and it was hard work. I walked away like this.
Yeah.
But it was exactly what you're talking about. So you see a good stem, and the others are not good stems. And you gradually get faster. Kulala, the fastest can be. I'm slow. That's exactly the right stem.
Okay, so how does a prophet prove where he's at? Because a prophet's or a messenger's job is to reflect Messiah. His job is to reflect Messiah, not his ministry. Not to reflect his way of doing things or how he does it. His job is to always reflect Messiah and Abba. And his job is to spread Yahweh's message among his people. And it has to be a message of redemption and deliverance that when accepted leads to having sins forgiven and a restored relationship with Yahweh. And that's something that only Yahweh can grant. When any major roading project begins, the rubble's got to be removed. The surface must be made level by filling in the potholes. Then the bends need to be straightened out, and finally a rock-solid surface must be achieved. Then, and only then, after a long period of time of settling and rolling, can a smooth surface be achieved that will allow smooth, fast, direct travel to a designated destination. And again, this process will need to be repeated in every single place along the route. Many skilled and dedicated labourers will be needed to plan, to carry out the task, and make sure that all of the resources are in the right place at the right time. One of the things most people forget in a project like that is they have to plan in advance. The truck's not just going to turn up on the right day unless somebody's planned in advance and said, well, we're going to do this, and this, and when we get to this stage, then we'll need that. Then when we've done that, then we'll need that. And plan it out in advance to make sure those resources are delivered right at the right time, not just heaped up ready to use them. So somebody has to do that. Somebody has to plan. Somebody has to be an administrator and plan all of those things. Same thing in the kingdom. And it's no use turning around saying, but this hasn't come yet. It doesn't need to. Until that process has been finished, you won't need that. Then when that process is finished, and He'll deliver what you need when you need it. Our task is exactly the same, and when this highway to heaven is complete, then and only then Yeshua will get the nod from His Abba to return and lead the redemption convoy home. Our first task, though, is to prepare thoroughly, allowing Abba to use exactly the same process within our own lives. He has to carry out that process in our lives, then He has to use us to carry out that process where we are, in our ministry, in whatever area. That same process needs to happen. Then, and only after He's done that in our lives, we can take the message to others. Then we can remove centuries of useless rubble made up of man-made doctrines, myths and legends. Yeshayahu prophesied it, that it would happen. And Yeshua confirmed it when He said, "These people honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me." To me, that's the saddest condemnation I've ever heard. They honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me. That's sad. And their worship of me is useless, because they teach man-made rules as if they were doctrines.
And the people I think about most are rabbis.
Yep.
I've been to several family funerals, and I've never seen a more dead person than the rabbi who took it. He was physically alive, but he had a blank stare. He looked spiritually dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah.
It was blank. Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people are standing in front of groups like this, and the people in the group are praying for their redemption. I had a friend that was like that. He'd come from a whole 3 generations of Presbyterian pastors, and he said, "I stood in that pulpit every day for 7 years, knowing that I was a hypocrite, knowing that I didn't believe a word that I was speaking. What I didn't know was that there was a few old ladies, and they got together during the weekend, they got together on Sunday, and they were praying for my redemption. They knew where I was at, even though I didn't know they knew where I was at, but they knew where I was at, and they were praying for life for me. And they're saying, I stand here now, speaking the truth and understanding, and actually being redeemed because of these little old ladies."
Jeffrey, I really get cross, because I've got to know 2 rabbis really well. One in South House away from me. And I read that God probably blinded the Jewish people. And He said it's a benefit. So we can't criticize God for making that a benefit. We just know. And so after Derech died, I just said some things about to the rabbi's house. And he didn't speak to me for ages until Derech died. And he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "I was unable to speak to anybody really." And I said, "Have you ever grieved?" And he said, "Of course I have, my son." And because of that, and it took about 3 to 5 years. And when I left Durban, I had a chance to speak in front of all his people, and they got the message. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And then the following 2 days, I was there, and he said in front of everybody, having, like that, and phoned me up and said, "Don't you ever do that again, or that's me." He said, "You're a very nice person." So they all heard it, and they all saw this 3 to 5 year thing. I didn't do it, but God did it.
But the whole point is, you're never going to talk anybody into the kingdom.
No.
Yeah, he was so
Only the Ruach HaKodesh can make it happen.
exactly. I didn't,
But our job is to tell them the truth. And then it's up to them to work that out with Yahweh. And the Ruach will help them work it out, because He leads people into all truth. So all we can do for those people is pray that the Ruach HaKodesh would start to lead them into the truth and bring people across their paths, help them to see things, whatever, and eventually it will happen. But no. But mainly with the people He's talking about are the religious people. honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me. Their worship of me is useless, because they teach man-made rules as if they were doctrine. The fact is, there is no such thing as an unredeemed human, only an unrepentant human. No such thing as an unredeemed human. The whole human race has been redeemed. The only thing, the difference is, they're not repentant. So we're praying for repentance, for them to turn and to accept what's already there. It's already a gift. It's already theirs. It's already got their name on it and the ribbon tied up. All they've got to do is accept it. So let's fill in the holes and gaps in our Torah knowledge. Let's remove our security blankets. Let's remove our old childish habits and soul ties, our fleshly attachments to people. No more soulmates. I hate it with a vengeance. Well, I don't have a soulmate, I have a spirit mate. We must surrender all of the obstacles that keep us from being fully effective by letting Abba straighten out our characters, remove the rubble, and make us able to lead others by example along the way. We don't want the blind leading the blind. That's already happening. Yeshua said, I am, the tetragrammaton, Yud-He Vav-He, I am who I am. It actually means I am the way, the truth and the life. It actually means I was, I am, and I will be. So he was telling people, this is me, this is who I am, this is my authority, and that's why I'm the way, the truth and the life.
So why don't people use Jehovah?
It's an English translation. It doesn't mean anything.
I know, it doesn't mean anything.
No, but the rabbis are just as bad, because they'll put G-D.
It was a Catholic.
Or they'll use Hashem. They'll use anything but the actual name.
Yeah. But Jehovah is really Yahweh.
It's really Yahweh, but anglicised.
Is it?
Pretty much.
Anglicised version.
Yes, that's all it is. Yeah.
But it was an ignorant, cosmic Catholic who actually made it for us. And there's no J in Hebrew and
I know.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
But the whole point is, I remember saying it before, I used to hear all this controversy when I first got involved in messianic things, and the rabbis would say we can't pronounce it because we don't know how to pronounce it anymore. Because as you know, the vowel points are not in most of the stuff, so we don't know how to pronounce it properly, so we mustn't do it. And all these people saying, if you don't say it this way, you're damned. And all these different groups have all these things, you know, the whatever. And I remember going to Abba and turning around saying, I'm confused. All these people say it's this way, it's that way, and I have to do it their way and everything else. And I felt I would just literally tap me on the shoulder and said, why don't you ask me? I thought, yeah, why don't I ask him? It's like, I know my name, he knows his name. I don't need to ask anybody else. I don't need to be confused. So that's always been my suggestion to people. If you want to know how to pronounce his name, ask him. And he'll tell you exactly how he wants you to pronounce his name. If you want to know how to pronounce my name, ask me. If you want to know how to pronounce his name, ask him. Don't listen to all this other stuff out there. And I have purposely not made a point of sharing with people what he told me, because I don't want it to become yet another thing. Oh, this is the way to do it. This is the way we must do it. I want you to hear it from him personally, because when you hear it from him personally, then you've got the confidence that it is what it is. And it's much better that way. Even everything I do on a Saturday morning, I'm just laying a trail of breadcrumbs. My job is to prepare the trail of breadcrumbs and for you to start going along it to find the source and finding out what he really wants to teach you and what he really wants you to know. All I do is provide some pointers along the way. I want you to hear from him personally. I want you that whatever I say, you check it out scripturally. That's the Torah way. Your job is to take whatever I've said or whatever anybody else has said and check it out for yourself and use your discernment and ask him to confirm it to you. Because once he's confirmed it to you, it's rock solid. If you just hear it from me, it's like, oh, maybe, maybe not. But if you get a confirmation from him, it's rock solid. So no more soulmates, spirit mates. So we have to let go of all of the obstacles, and some of the obstacles, unfortunately, are things that we hold precious to us. And we say, oh, but this is, this is my foundation, this is precious. I had to let go of so many things when I first became Messianic that were my foundations, that were my bedrock, that were my, and I'd heard them from people that I loved and respected. And it was very hard for me to let some of them go because of that. And people will feel like you're trying to steal their foundations when you tell them things. And you say, no, all I'm doing is saying this, you go and check it out scripturally for yourself. Don't take my word, look at his word. Okay. So he is the way, the truth and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through him. Suddenly the message is self-evident. Suddenly the task is clear. We are to prepare the way, his way, now, today. Job descriptions have been issued. Equipment is in place. Resources have been made available. But to access them, we have to take a bold first step forward. He's not going to deliver them to us. We have to go get them. We all have different responsibilities and tasks. There is no right thing to do or wrong thing to do in terms of following his plans. There's just different things to do. And I will take a word that he's got and I'll see it differently and I'll do it differently. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that I would do it differently to you because you have different motivation, different skills, different tasks, different backgrounds. We all have different responsibilities and tasks, but we all have the same goal. Everybody's just watched the All Blacks. If they all played the same position and tried to do the same thing, do you think they'd have won the World Cup? No. Why did they win the World Cup? Because they all did different things but had the same goal. They played as a team and they just concentrated on their part, their task, and did it well. And because they all did it well, it was a collection of all of those things that made the result what it was. And it's going to be the same for us. We cannot do it if we all try to be the same and do the same thing. We're not supposed to be clones. We're supposed to do what he's telling us to do, how he's telling us to do it. And if we all do that well, as a collective group, we will achieve the goal, we will achieve the task. It's like a hospital. There's different departments. The anaesthetist doesn't turn around and say to the surgeon, I'm the important one round here, not you. The disease specialist doesn't turn around to somebody that does orthopedics and say, I'm the important person in this hospital. They all do what they do well, and they only focus on what they do well. And as they all do the different things, they get the job done. None of them try and stand up and say, I'm the most important person in this place. Now, I guess the only people that really do everything all at the same time is the emergency department. Emergency department have to do everything. But their job is purely and simply to get people to the stage where they can be sent to specialists that specialise in what their need is. And we're the same. There are people that have gifts, and we all have gifts in certain areas, but just because I prophesy doesn't make me a prophet. Just because I preach the word doesn't make me an evangelist. Just because I pray for people to be healed doesn't mean that that's my ministry. It's just something that I do. But some people have specific ministries in those areas, and that's very different. And we need those people that specialise. But we should all be able to operate in each of those areas. Different seasons. So come on, it's time to clear your schedule. New timetables are available right now. As I've said before, there are no more lay people, only standing upright, labouring and harvesting people. It's time to stop being lay people and time to stand up. Together as a body, we are the team. We are the combined harvesters. We're ready to roll. The field is white for the harvest. It's time for everybody to come together as one combined harvester, each doing the job that we're intended to do. Inevitably, some will say, "Oh, but I'm not able." Simple. Yahweh will make you able, if you're willing. He never calls us to a task that He doesn't equip us for, physically, spiritually and emotionally. And the times when people crash is when they try and fulfill somebody else's task, somebody else's ministry. But not only do they fail because they try to do that, but they block the path of the person that was meant to be there and doing it. So you get two frustrated people and a lot of confused, injured people that haven't been ministered to in the correct way. So others will say ministry begins at home. And they're correct. But only as a beginning. Only as a place of training. Don't use that as an excuse to avoid the rest of the journey that He's calling you to when the time comes. As always, many will find, invent and use many excuses. But at the end of the day, that's all they are. Invalid excuses. Reasons to be disobedient. Obedience is always superior to sacrifice. Obedience carries out His plans. Sacrifice is a way to manipulate and impress Him. That's our way of doing things. We sacrifice to impress Him.
I always thought sacrifice was something that you did after you sinned. And so therefore being obedient, if you were obedient, you wouldn't need to do sacrifice because you had not committed.
We don't need to do sacrifice anymore. It's already been paid in full. We don't need to. If we're sacrificing, then we're basically trying to, by good works and everything, gain redemption, and we can't, and we shouldn't. So we're not here to sacrifice. We're here to be obedient. Cain brought what he decided that Yahweh wanted. And he thought, I'm really going to impress Him. And was really, really upset when Yahweh refused it. And he produced it by the sweat of his brow, which was part of the curse. But the reality is that Yahweh never ever asked him to do what he did. And that's why he refused it. Not to reject or punish him, but to teach him. Hevel, on the other hand, listened and was obedient and brought the firstborn of his sheep, including the fat, which was an offering described and sanctioned by Yahweh. And it was an offering he fully outlined to the Kohen and witnessed in his own son Yeshua as the ultimate lamb sacrifice. Again, many will say, but I've done this in your name and I've done that in your name. All sacrifice. His answer, I never knew you. Why? Because you weren't obedient. You were not carrying out my plan. You weren't spending time with me and doing things with me. You were spending time doing things for me. Sacrifice. There are no lone wolves. No individual superstars, no egocentric spiritual heavies in Yahweh's kingdom. If any of the people are any of those things, then they're not part of His kingdom. Because it's not the way we do things in His kingdom. And that's the kind of fruit that we can see and recognise. We are effective only as an undivided team, a united whole body, ministering together as we utilise our various gifts, abilities and resources. So none of these puffed up fancy schmancy titles and positions, just responsibilities and functions. But doesn't that mean stepping up and taking our designated responsibilities seriously while functioning effectively? Absolutely. We should be feeding the lambs, shepherding the sheep and feeding the sheep, His flock, His way, carrying out responsibility and function fully. He never has and never will tell us to control them. He told us to feed His sheep, to shepherd His sheep. He never once told us to control them. Never once told us to manipulate them. He never once told us to fleece the sheep. That's not our job. Never told us to fleece them, abandon them, to construct a holding pen with our name on it to contain them, or to judge and condemn them, or even neglect or reject them. He never told us any of those things. Our task is actually quite simple. We're to lead them, feed them and heed them. That puts it in a nutshell. If you want to know what your ministry is, it's to lead them, feed them and heed them.
What's the feeder?
Listen to them. Listen to their needs. Don't just talk to them all the time. Listen to them. It's like prayer. It's not a one-way conversation. We're actually meant to listen as well as talk. Most people's idea of prayer is a speech or a shopping list. No. Our job is to listen more than we speak. The best thing you can say when you pray is, "Here is your servant, speak to him." No, by the way, I've got this against them, and I've got this, and by the way, I'd like this and I'd like that, and I want the Mercedes delivered at 6, and not the way it works. He's not Santa Claus.
We say that's all on Easter Sunday. Someone delivers a Mercedes at your house.
And then finally, when we've done all these things and guided them safely along the way home, which is our job as shepherds, then finally we will hear the words that make it all worthwhile. It's the only reward that we're interested in. When he says, "Well done, good and faithful or trustworthy shamash, servant, well done." Suddenly it becomes so clear and simple. He has already sent messengers to prepare the way. Us. And we say, "Oh, who are the messengers that are preparing the way?" We are. We are the voice crying out in the desert saying, "Prepare the way for Messiah. Make the path straight for him." Us. Because after us is coming someone far more powerful than us. Someone whose sandals we're not even worthy to untie. Someone returning to reclaim his inheritance. The Creator coming to reclaim his redeemed creation. You are the messenger. I am the messenger. You have been chosen. I have been chosen. Because together we are the messengers. We have been chosen. So we need to raise our voices like a shofar. We need to shout aloud and not hold back. Welcome to Narrowway Construction HQ. Never despise the day of small beginnings, because they are the foundation days. When anybody's been involved in a ministry that started very small and got very big, the thing you keep looking back on and really appreciate is the foundation days and think, if only they'd lasted longer. If only they'd done a better job than they did, then some of the cracks wouldn't appear that have appeared. Some of the things that went wrong wouldn't have gone wrong. So you need to value that preparation time, that foundation time, and not be impatient like people like me who are pioneers. And they're so impatient that they'd rush on and want to get things done, and then these things will crop up. This is why we need other people to turn around and say, "Now hang on, calm down a little bit. It's no use rushing ahead unless you take the people with you." So they're the foundation days. Be encouraged, beloved. Embrace the training. Because the ability to move a mountain is only given to those who've already moved foothills.